The alien queen's child called me father, and the whole court fell silent. John Miller stepped off the small shuttle and onto the smooth, glimmering platform of the Zalarian palace. His boots clicked softly against the polished surface, and he felt the weight of 1,000 eyes on him. He had read about alien courts before, but nothing could prepare him for this. The air shimmered faintly, and the buildings around him seemed to float in the sky. He could see creatures with long limbs, glowing skin, and eyes that seemed to see into his very thoughts. He took a deep breath and tried to steady his nerves. John was an envoy, a simple human chosen to speak to the Zalarian Empire after the recent border conflict. Most humans would never imagine walking into a place like this, but he had no choice. The survival of his people, even in some small way, depended on him. The palace gates opened with a quiet hum, and a tall, thin figure with silver skin approached. Its face was delicate, almost feminine, and its eyes glowed faintly blue. "Welcome, John Miller," it said in a soft, melodic voice. "I am Ilara, the chief of court protocol. Follow me." John nodded, feeling slightly foolish. "Thank you." His voice sounded small in the vast open space. As he followed Ilara, John tried to take everything in. The palace was enormous, with ceilings so high he could not see the top. Platforms floated midair, connected by bridges that seemed to defy gravity. Everywhere he looked, there were Zalarians, some walking, some hovering, some gliding effortlessly through the air. They moved gracefully, but John could sense the underlying tension in the court. Many of them glanced at him and whispered among themselves. He was led to a waiting room filled with tall, crystalline chairs that reflected the soft light in every direction. In the center, a small child sat on a platform that hovered slightly above the ground. The child had greenish skin, large eyes with golden irises, and a small frame that made John think of a delicate bird. The child looked at him curiously and tilted its head. John froze for a moment. The child was the one he had heard about, the queen's only offspring. Her name was Leora, and she was said to be clever beyond her years. Most humans would have been intimidated by a royal child, but John felt a strange calm. There was something in Leora's gaze that made him think she was more curious than fearful. "Leora," Ilara said gently, "this is John Miller. He is our guest from the human world." The child's golden eyes widened slightly. "Hello," she said in a voice that was soft but firm. John could understand her perfectly. The Zalarians spoke in a language humans could comprehend through subtle mental translation devices implanted in visitors' brains. "Hello," John replied, smiling. He crouched slightly to appear less threatening. "I'm happy to meet you." Leora's eyes sparkled. She hovered down a little closer to John. "Do you like games?" she asked. John blinked. "Games? Yes, I like games." He didn't know what kind of games the child meant, but he smiled anyway. Leora giggled, a sound that echoed softly in the large room. "I like games too," she said. She waved a tiny hand, and a small sphere of light floated between them. It hovered, glowing gently, as if waiting for them to play. John's eyes widened. "That's amazing." He reached out carefully, and the sphere responded to his touch, moving and changing colors. Leora laughed, a sound so bright and pure that John almost forgot where he was. Ilara cleared her throat softly. "Remember, John, this is the heir to the Zalarian Empire. Treat her with respect." John nodded quickly. "Of course." For the next hour, John and Leora played together. He found himself amazed at how quickly the child learned. She seemed to understand things instinctively, and yet she was playful and mischievous. John showed her how humans played with simple tricks and gestures, like rolling a ball or tossing a small object. Leora copied him perfectly, her glowing eyes filled with joy. As they played, John noticed the other Zalarians watching silently. Some looked suspicious, others curious, and a few seemed almost wary. John realized that this simple interaction, which seemed innocent, was likely being interpreted in ways he could not imagine. In their society, even small gestures could carry great meaning. When it was time to stop, Leora floated up and looked at him seriously. "You are fun," she said. "I like you." John smiled. "I like you too, Leora." He paused. "You're very clever." Leora tilted her head, studying him. "Clever like you?" John laughed softly. "Maybe I try." The moment was interrupted by a loud chime signaling the arrival of Queen Irina. John's heart raced. He had not expected to meet the queen so soon, and he was nervous. The room fell silent as a tall, regal figure entered. Queen Irina moved with a presence that seemed to command the air itself. Her skin shimmered like molten gold, and her eyes held a wisdom that spanned centuries. She regarded John carefully, and he bowed slightly. "John Miller," she said in a voice that was both commanding and gentle. "I have heard much about your people. Tell me, why have you come?" John straightened. "Your Majesty, I come in peace. I am here to speak on behalf of humanity. We wish to ensure that our worlds can coexist without conflict." Queen Irina studied him for a long moment. Her gaze was piercing, but John did not look away. He had learned that showing fear here could be dangerous, and he felt a strange courage rise inside him. "You are brave," the Queen said finally. "Many humans would tremble before a Zalarian court. Tell me, what do you know of our ways?" John thought carefully. "I know that your people are wise and that you value knowledge and strength. I also know that your child is special and that she is very clever." Irina raised an eyebrow. "You speak well of my daughter. That is rare for a human." John nodded. "She is remarkable. I have enjoyed my time with her. She is honest, curious, and full of life." The Queen's lips curved slightly, a small smile. She seemed to relax just a little. "You have spent little time here, yet you speak with care. That is good. But remember, the court is not so easily swayed. Many will watch you and question your every move." "I understand," John said quietly. Irina nodded. She turned her gaze to Leora. "And what do you say, my child? Have you enjoyed the company of this human?" Leora floated closer to John, her golden eyes bright. She looked directly at the Queen. "Yes, mother, he is fun. He listens to me. He is nice." A murmur went through the room. Some of the Zalarians looked confused, others intrigued. John felt the tension but stayed calm. Leora, it seemed, had the power to disarm them all. Queen Irina's eyes softened as she looked at her daughter. She had been cautious, protective, and wary of outsiders, but seeing Leora's simple trust in John stirred something in her. "We shall see," she said slowly. "Much depends on your actions here, John Miller. The court will judge, but I will observe." John bowed again. "I will do my best, Your Majesty." After the Queen departed, Alara guided John to his quarters. "Rest now," she said. "The court will gather soon for the evening ceremonies. It will be intense." John nodded, feeling both tired and exhilarated. He had entered a world far beyond his own, full of strange beauty, ancient customs, and alien power. And yet, among all this, a small child had already chosen to trust him. That trust felt heavier than any responsibility he had ever carried. That night, as John lay on the simple bed in his quarters, he thought of Leora. Her golden eyes, her laughter, the way she had looked at him with open curiosity. He realized something unexpected. In a court filled with suspicion and hierarchy, the bond between a human and a child could be stronger than politics, stronger than fear. He drifted into sleep with a mixture of hope and worry. Tomorrow, the court would watch him more closely. He would need all his courage, his intelligence, and perhaps a little luck. But deep down, he felt a strange certainty that this child, small and radiant, could change everything. The next morning, John woke to a soft glow coming from the window of his quarters. The palace seemed alive even in quiet moments. The light shimmered on the floating platforms outside, and faint hums of energy echoed through the walls. He stretched, trying to shake off the sleepiness, and reminded himself that today he would spend more time with Leora. Alara arrived promptly, her silver skin reflecting the morning light. "John," she said, "the child is ready. She asked to see you early." John nodded and followed her through the vast corridors. As they walked, he noticed more of the palace's strange beauty. Crystalline flowers floated in the air, casting tiny rainbows, and the floors changed color under his steps, responding to movement. He had seen alien technology before, but this felt almost like magic. When they reached Leora, she was waiting near a hovering platform shaped like a crescent moon. She looked at him and smiled brightly. "Good morning," she said. "Good morning," John replied, smiling back. "Did you sleep well?" Leora nodded. "Yes. I dreamed of flying over stars." She paused. "Do humans dream too?" John chuckled. "Yes, we do. We dream many things, sometimes about flying, sometimes about adventures, sometimes about people we like." The child's eyes sparkled. "I like adventures. Can we have one today?" John laughed softly. "I think we can, but it will be a small adventure inside the palace. We will have to follow the rules." Leora frowned for a moment, but then nodded. "Rules are boring, but I like you. You make rules fun." They started their day by exploring the palace gardens. The gardens were unlike anything John had seen. Plants glowed with soft light, water floated in midair like tiny clouds, and small creatures with translucent wings flitted between the flowers. Leora led the way, pointing at each strange plant and creature. "Look at this one," she said, touching a plant that shimmered like glass. The plant responded by curling and unfurling in slow, graceful movements. "It likes me." John knelt beside her. "It does." "Maybe it knows you are kind." Leora smiled and looked at him closely. "Do humans talk to plants?" "Sometimes," John said. "Some humans believe plants can feel things. They don't understand them completely, but they try to be kind." Leora considered this for a moment. "I think kindness is important. Even plants understand it." John nodded. "You are very wise, Leora." As they walked deeper into the garden, John noticed other members of the court watching from a distance. Their expressions were a mix of curiosity, suspicion, and mild alarm. They whispered to each other, but John could not hear their words. Alara noticed too and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Do not worry," she said. "They are always watching. You must act carefully, but be yourself. The child trusts you, and that is powerful." John took a deep breath and continued. He felt a strange warmth in his chest. He had been trained for diplomacy, negotiation, and even combat, but he had never expected that simply being kind to a child could be so important. Leora seemed to have a natural way of drawing out the best in him. They came to a small courtyard with a reflecting pool. The water floated above the ground in a thin, shimmering layer held by energy fields. Leora clapped her hands with delight. "Let's play here." John nodded and followed her instructions as she guided him in simple games of coordination. They tossed small orbs of light back and forth, laughed when the orbs changed color unexpectedly, and even tried balancing on floating platforms without falling. John was careful not to overdo it, knowing that a wrong step could anger the court or damage the palace. But Leora was fearless, and her laughter made even the guards watching seem at ease. After some time, they rested on a hovering platform shaped like a leaf. Leora leaned against him, her small body light as air. "You are funny, father," she said suddenly. John froze. He blinked at her, unsure if he had heard correctly. "Father," he repeated, his voice soft. Leora looked at him with serious eyes. "Yes, father, that is what you are." A chill ran through John. He had never expected this. He opened his mouth to speak, but Leora had already turned away to look at a floating butterfly. The word hung in the air, delicate yet firm, and John realized the full weight of what she had said. In that instant, he felt a strange mix of honor, fear, and responsibility. Alara had been observing from a distance, and she did not intervene immediately. She knew that the child had a mind of her own, and that this declaration, though surprising, carried more meaning than anyone fully understood. John, however, felt the weight of centuries of tradition pressing on him. Being called father in this court was not a simple title. It implied trust, guidance, and protection, and it could change the course of the child's life and perhaps the empire itself. John knelt to Leora's level. "Leora," he said gently, I did not expect you to call me that. I am honored, truly, but I am just a human." "I have much to learn." Leora tilted her head. "I know, but I like you. You listen, you care. That is why you are father." John's heart ached at the simplicity and honesty of her words. He had spent years studying alien cultures, learning their ways and preparing for diplomacy, but nothing had prepared him for this. Here was a child who trusted him completely, without fear, without judgment, and without expectation. It was a bond stronger than any alliance or treaty. As they continued their day, John began teaching Leora more about humans. He drew simple sketches on floating panels, showing her pictures of Earth, of animals, trees, mountains, and oceans. Leora's eyes widened as she studied the images. She asked countless questions, each one thoughtful and insightful. "Do humans really live in cities like this?" she asked, pointing at a drawing of New York. John nodded. "Yes, some humans do. There are many cities and each is different. Some are quiet, some are loud, and some are very busy." Leora considered this. "I think I would like quiet cities. They sound peaceful." John smiled. "They can be, but even busy cities have good things. You just have to look for them." The lessons continued throughout the day, but John noticed something remarkable. Leora was learning quickly, but she was also teaching him. She had a way of seeing the world that was simple, honest, and wise. Every question she asked made him think differently. Every comment she made reminded him of the importance of kindness, patience, and understanding. Later, as the sun of the alien world began to set, casting long, shimmering shadows across the palace, John and Leora sat by a small pool of floating water. Leora reached out and touched his hand. "You will stay with me, father?" she asked. John looked at her, feeling the weight of the title she had given him. He nodded slowly. "I will, Leora. I will do my best to be with you and protect you as much as I can." Leora smiled, a small, radiant smile that seemed to light up the entire courtyard. "Good. That is all I want." As the evening deepened, John realized that the court was watching them closely. From distant balconies, Zalarians observed their interactions, whispering among themselves. Some looked troubled, others curious, and a few seemed thoughtful. The child's declaration had already begun to ripple through the palace. John did not yet know the full consequences of being called father by the queen's child. He only knew that the trust placed in him was precious and fragile, and that he must honor it. He also understood that this bond might change more than just his life. It could change the way the court saw humans, and perhaps even the relationship between their worlds. That night, when John returned to his quarters, he sat quietly by the window. He looked at the floating platforms and shimmering lights of the palace and thought about the strange path that had led him here. He had come as a simple envoy, untested and unsure. Now he was something more. He was a guardian, a teacher, and a father in the eyes of a child who carried the future of an entire empire. The words father echoed in his mind, gentle yet powerful. They reminded him that even in the vast, alien world, simple acts of kindness, trust, and understanding could create connections stronger than any technology, treaty, or weapon. He drifted into sleep, feeling both the weight and the warmth of the responsibility placed upon him, unaware that the ripple of his bond with Leora was already beginning to change the hearts of those around them. The morning light spilled across the palace, casting long, glowing beams that made the floating platforms shimmer. John Miller walked carefully through the corridors, his mind still filled with Leora's words from yesterday. She had called him father, and the weight of that simple title pressed on him like a stone. He had thought of it all night, turning it over and over, trying to understand what it truly meant in this alien court. He reached the main hall, a vast space filled with Zalarian nobles, their skin shimmering in different colors, their forms both beautiful and strange to a human eye. The hall was silent as he entered. All eyes turned toward him, some curious, some suspicious. Whispers moved like soft waves across the room. John felt the tension immediately. Alara appeared at his side. "They are waiting," she said softly. "You must be careful, the court will test you. Your bond with Leora may be challenged. Watch, listen, and act with patience." John nodded. He understood. Every movement he made here would be noticed, judged, and interpreted. One wrong word, one wrong gesture, and it could turn against him. He straightened his back and moved forward, trying to appear calm. At the center of the hall, Queen Irina sat on her throne. She looked more regal than ever, her golden skin glowing in the morning light. Her gaze swept across the room before landing on John. Her eyes were sharp, thoughtful, and wary. She had not forgotten Leora's declaration. The child's simple words had disrupted centuries of careful tradition, and she wanted to see how John would respond. "John Miller," she said, her voice clear and commanding. "You have spent another day with my daughter. Tell me, what do you think of her?" John bowed slightly. "Your Majesty, Leora is remarkable. She is intelligent, curious, and full of life. She is wise beyond her years and kind in ways that are rare even among humans." A murmur went through the court. Some nodded quietly, others frowned. John could feel the scrutiny on him like a weight pressing down. Queen Irina raised her hand, and the room fell silent. "You speak highly of my child," she said. "Yet you are human. Many in this court believe humans are unpredictable and dangerous." "Why should we trust your words?" John met her gaze steadily. "I understand your concern. I am only a visitor from another world. I cannot change what others think, but I can promise that I will treat Leora with care and respect. I will listen to her, protect her, and guide her as best as I can. That is all I can do." The queen's expression softened slightly, though her eyes remained sharp. "You speak honestly. That is good. Yet honesty alone does not grant trust. Many words are honest but hollow." John nodded. "I know. I can only show through actions, not words." From a distant balcony, one of the older nobles leaned forward. His skin glimmered in deep purple, and his eyes held suspicion. "And what actions can a human truly take in our world?" he asked, his voice cold. "He is small, fragile, and inexperienced. How can he possibly guide a Zalarian child, especially one of royal blood?" John took a deep breath. He knew that answers needed to be careful and respectful. "I may be small and human," he said, "but humans are clever and resilient. We adapt to new challenges and we care deeply for those we protect. Leora has chosen to trust me. I will honor that trust with every action I take. That is not weakness, it is strength." A hush fell over the hall. Some of the nobles exchanged surprised glances. Few had ever heard a human speak with such calm confidence. Others, however, shook their heads and muttered warnings. It was clear that not everyone would accept him. Queen Arena watched silently for a long moment. Then slowly, she rose from her throne and walked toward John. Every step she took seemed to echo through the hall, and John could feel the weight of her presence. "You speak boldly, John Miller," she said. "Your words show respect and courage, yet you still stand before a court bound by tradition and suspicion. Will you continue to teach and guide my child, knowing that some will oppose you, and that danger may come from those who do not trust humans?" John straightened. "Yes, your majesty, I will do my best no matter the danger. Leora's trust is worth everything." The queen regarded him for a long time. Then she returned to her throne and sat again. "We shall see," she said quietly. "Much will be tested. This court is not easily swayed. You may have gained the child's trust, but the eyes of the Empire are upon you." "Act with care, John Miller," John bowed. "I understand, your majesty." The queen waved her hand, signaling the start of the day's council. The court began discussing matters of trade, diplomacy, and security. John listened carefully, noting every detail. He did not speak much, knowing that his presence alone was already a statement, yet he watched the child closely. Leora followed him, moving with a quiet grace, occasionally glancing at him with her golden eyes. During a break, Leora approached John again. "Why are they looking at you like that?" she asked softly. John knelt beside her. "They are watching carefully because they do not fully understand humans. They do not know if we are friends or enemies. They are cautious." Leora frowned. "But I know you are my father." John smiled gently. "Yes, Leora, and that matters more than anything else, but you must understand that others may not see things the same way yet." She thought for a moment, then nodded. "I will show them. They will see you too." John laughed softly. "We will try, Leora." Step by step, the day passed slowly. John continued teaching Leora about humans and Earth. He told her stories of forests, oceans, and cities. He showed her simple human games and tricks that made her laugh. Every time she laughed, John felt a warmth in his chest. He realized that no matter how the court judged him, this bond was real, and it could not be taken away. Yet the court's whispers grew louder. Some nobles expressed concern about the child's attachment to a human. Others warned that humans might manipulate Leora for their own gain. John felt the tension but remained calm. He knew that the child's safety and trust were his priority, and he could not let fear control him. In the evening, the queen summoned John again. She led him to a balcony overlooking the city. Lights shimmered like stars below, and the wind carried a soft hum of energy from the floating platforms. "You have spent much time with Leora," she said quietly. "She trusts you. That is unusual even for humans. Tell me, John Miller, do you feel ready to bear the responsibility of that trust?" John looked at her, his eyes steady. "I do, your majesty. I do not take it lightly. She is more than a child. She is a part of your future, a part of your empire. I will do everything I can to guide and protect her." The queen studied him in silence. Then she nodded slightly. "Your words are brave and perhaps wise, but words alone will not be enough. You must prove yourself through action. The court will watch, and you will be tested." John bowed. "I understand, your majesty." She stepped back and looked out over the city. "Trust is a fragile thing, John Miller. You have earned a part of it, but the rest of the empire may not be so forgiving. Be cautious, be patient. And above all, honor the trust placed in you." John nodded silently. He understood. Every step he took now mattered. Every decision could have consequences not only for himself but for Leora and the Empire. Yet he felt a quiet determination growing inside him. He had been called father by the Queen's child, and that trust was more powerful than any fear, any tradition, any danger. As he returned to Leora, she ran to him, her golden eyes bright. "Father, they are watching us," she said. John knelt to her level. "Yes, they are. But we will show them that trust and kindness are stronger than fear. Step by step, we will prove it together." She smiled and took his hand. Together they walked through the hall, not as a human and a child, but as a bond that could not easily be broken. The court may have been silent and skeptical, but John felt something shift in the air. Change was coming, and he was ready to face it. That night, as John lay in his quarters, he thought of the court's eyes, the whispers, and the challenges ahead. He knew there would be tests, dangers, and moments when trust might falter. Yet he also knew that Leora had chosen him, and that choice was more powerful than any threat. He closed his eyes and allowed himself a small smile. No matter the court, no matter the whispers, no matter the doubts, he would honor that trust. He would be the father Leora had called him, and he would protect her with everything he had. The next day, the palace seemed quieter than usual, but John Miller could feel tension in the air. He had learned to read the subtle signs of the Zalarian court, the way a whisper carried, the way eyes lingered on him, the way gestures spoke more than words. Something was wrong. He walked through the corridors toward the garden where Leora usually waited. His boots echoed softly against the smooth floor, but he felt watched. He glanced at the floating platforms and saw figures slipping behind columns, observing him. The court was restless. The word "father" had spread quickly, and not everyone was happy about it. When John entered the garden, Leora was already there, floating above a small pool of water that shimmered with alien light. She waved excitedly. "Father, look at this!" She had conjured a small orb of energy and made it dance above her hand. It changed colors like a living rainbow. John smiled, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling. "That's amazing, Leora. You're very talented," Leora giggled. "I learned from the best," John laughed softly. "I hope I'm good enough." She floated closer to him. "You are, father." "Don't worry." The warmth of her trust gave him courage, but his instincts told him to be alert. He sensed eyes on them, and whispers carried through the garden. Some members of the court were unhappy, and John knew their displeasure could quickly turn dangerous. As the day went on, John tried to continue teaching Leora about humans and their world. He drew pictures on floating panels, told stories, and showed her simple games. Leora's laughter echoed through the garden, drawing the attention of some guards and servants. Suddenly, a sharp, mechanical sound cut through the air. John froze. He looked around and saw shadows moving faster than normal across the balconies. Something was coming. "Leora, stay close to me," John said softly, placing his hand over hers. She nodded, her eyes wide but trusting. Before John could react further, several figures emerged from the shadows. Their forms were sleek, dark, and almost invisible in the bright light. They moved with precision, clearly trained for stealth and attack. John recognized immediately they were assassins sent to test him or worse, to remove him entirely. He acted quickly. "Leora, float behind me," he shouted. His instincts, trained for danger, took over. He stepped forward, holding his arms out to shield her. The assassins struck. Energy blades flashed through the air, slicing through the floating plants and water orbs around them. John moved with speed and focus he had never needed before. He dodged, blocked, and pushed Leora to safety. Leora floated close, her golden eyes wide with fear. "Father." "Be careful." John ducked another strike and used a small panel as a shield. He could feel the hum of the blades against the energy, and he realized he would need more than strength. He had to think. He glanced at the floating water pools and the orbs Leora had been playing with. Using a quick gesture, he caused one of the orbs to expand and float between him and the attackers. The light blinded them briefly, giving him the chance to grab Leora and leap onto a higher platform. The assassins were skilled, but they underestimated John's human ingenuity. He noticed the pattern in their movements and used it against them, forcing them to stumble into each other. Leora, wide-eyed but brave, floated beside him, ready to act when needed. John knew he could not fight them head-on for long. They were too fast, too precise. He needed to escape the garden. Spotting a small corridor leading to a higher balcony, he grabbed Leora's hand. "This way, follow me." They dashed through the corridor, the assassins closed behind. John ducked under a swinging blade and pushed open a door that led to the main palace hall. He glanced around, searching for anything he could use to protect them. Then he noticed the floating lights above the hall, small spheres that moved with the palace's energy. He gestured toward one and it responded, spinning rapidly and emitting a blinding light. The assassins hesitated, shielding their eyes. John used the moment to push Leora to a safe platform above. "Hold on, Leora," he shouted. She gripped his hand tightly, her small fingers strong in her trust. John took a running leap and grabbed a support beam, swinging them both across the hall. The assassins tried to follow, but they were slowed by the light and the tricky angles of the palace's architecture. They landed safely on another platform. John panted, realizing how close they had come to disaster. Leora looked at him with awe. "Father, you saved me." John knelt, holding her hand. I will always protect you, Leora. That is what being your father means. She smiled, a small, radiant smile that made all the fear of the moment fade. I know, I trust you. But John could feel the danger had not passed. These assassins were trained, and the court had factions that might support their actions. He realized that being called father had not only earned him Leora's trust, but it had also made him a target. He knew he could not stay in one place. He needed to find the queen and explain what had happened. He carried Leora through hidden corridors, avoiding the main court chambers. The palace seemed to shift and change as they moved, with floating platforms and moving walls that could disorient intruders. John used every bit of his training to navigate, and Leora followed him without hesitation. Finally, they reached the queen's private chambers. John knocked softly. Your Majesty, it is urgent. Assassins attacked the child and me. We need protection. Queen Irina opened the door and looked at them, her eyes wide with alarm. What happened? She demanded. John quickly explained, describing the stealthy attackers and their intent. Leora added in her own words, emphasizing how brave John had been. The queen's eyes softened as she saw her child safe and unharmed. They came for me, John said quietly. I think some members of the court are not happy with Leora's trust in me. They may try again. The queen's expression hardened. I see, she said. This is serious. You have proven courage, John Miller. Many humans would have failed. You have protected my child, and that shows strength beyond words. John bowed slightly. Thank you, Your Majesty. I only did what I must. Irina nodded. She turned to Leora, who floated nearby. You were brave as well, she said gently, but this is a reminder that trust comes with danger. You must always be careful. Leora looked at her mother and then at John. I am not afraid. Father is with me. The queen allowed herself a small, proud smile. Then we shall take measures to ensure your safety. John Miller, you have earned more than words can say. You will not face this alone. John felt a surge of relief. The queen had acknowledged him, and the court would now have to reconsider their stance. Being called father had been risky, but it had also shown him to be brave, clever, and loyal. That evening, the palace gathered for a council meeting. The assassins had been captured and questioned, and the factions that had plotted were warned. John remained calm, observing everything. He knew that trust in this court was fragile, but he had proven himself in a way no human had before. Leora floated beside him during the meeting. She whispered softly, Father, you were amazing today. John smiled and ruffled her hair gently. You were amazing too. We faced danger together. As the council ended, John realized something important. His bond with Leora was not just about trust or affection. It was proof that humans could be brave, intelligent, and honorable in ways that even the most skeptical Xylarians could see. Step by step, he was beginning to change the court's perception of his people. That night, John sat in his quarters thinking about the events of the day. Assassins, danger, whispers in the court, everything had been a test, and he had passed. But he knew that challenges would continue. Some in the court would always distrust him. Some would seek to undermine him, but the bond with Leora was stronger than any fear. He looked at the small, glowing orb she had given him earlier. It pulsed softly, a reminder of trust, courage, and hope. John knew that protecting Leora was not only about defending her from immediate danger. It was about showing the court that humans could be allies, mentors, and friends. And as he drifted into sleep, he felt a quiet determination. No matter what the court thought, no matter how many challenges came, he would honor the trust placed in him. He would be Leora's father, and he would face whatever dangers arose with courage and care. The next morning, the palace seemed brighter, but John Miller knew that appearances could be deceiving. The events of the previous day, the attack by assassins, the whispers of discontent, and the child's unwavering trust had changed the atmosphere. The court was watching more closely than ever, waiting to see what would happen next. John walked through the corridors toward Leora, his steps measured and calm. He had learned to move carefully, to read the subtle signals of the Xylarian court, and to stay alert. Yet he felt a quiet confidence. He had survived danger, earned the queen's respect, and proved himself capable of protecting her child. When he arrived at the garden, Leora was waiting for him, hovering over the same pool of floating water as always. Her golden eyes shone with excitement. Father, she called, waving, come quickly, I have something to show you. John smiled and approached. What is it, Leora? She held a small orb in her hands, glowing softly with shifting colors. I made it, see how it moves. John nodded, genuinely impressed. It's beautiful. You are very talented. Leora floated closer to him. Do you think the court will like it? John considered carefully. Some may, others may not understand it yet, but what matters is that you made it and it shows your heart. That is more important than anything else. Leora looked thoughtful for a moment, then her eyes brightened. Father, will you come with me to the court today? John hesitated. The court would be full, and he knew that some nobles still viewed him with suspicion. But he also realized that this could be a moment to show that the bond he shared with Leora was real and strong. Yes, Leora, let's go. They walked together through the corridors, the floating platforms above and around them reflecting the morning light. As they entered the main hall, whispers filled the room. The courtiers were curious, cautious, and wary. John could feel their judgment, but he kept his expression calm. Leora floated beside him, unafraid. Queen Irina sat on her throne, her golden eyes fixed on them. She looked at John and then at Leora. You wish to enter the court together? She asked. Leora nodded firmly. Yes, Mother, I want everyone to see Father. The queen studied John for a moment, then she inclined her head slightly. Very well, let it be done. John followed Leora into the center of the hall, standing beside her. The court was silent, and for a moment the tension was almost unbearable. Every eye in the room was on them. Some nobles whispered to one another, others stared, and a few seemed thoughtful. Leora looked up at John and smiled, then she turned to the court. This is my father, she said clearly, her voice ringing out in the hall. He protects me, he teaches me, he listens to me, and I trust him completely. A hush fell over the room. The courtiers were silent, stunned by the child's declaration. John felt a mixture of pride and awe. He had been called father before privately by Leora, but now she was proclaiming it to the entire court. The words carried weight, power, and meaning. Queen Irina stood, her eyes softening as she looked at her child and then at John. So it is true, she said quietly. You have earned the trust of my child. John bowed slightly. I will continue to honor that trust, Your Majesty. A few of the nobles murmured in objection. It is unusual, dangerous even, for a human to hold such a place in our court, one said. Another voice replied, calmer this time, but he saved the child from the assassins yesterday. His courage is clear. Perhaps he is worthy. The queen raised her hand, silencing the murmurs. Enough, judgment comes from deeds, not fear. John Miller has proven himself through action, through courage, and through loyalty. He is to be trusted with my child's well-being, and that is final. John's heart swelled with relief and gratitude. He bowed deeply. Thank you, Your Majesty, I will not fail. Leora floated up and hugged him, her small arms strong despite her size. See, Father, they believe now, they will not question us anymore. John smiled down at her. Yes, Leora, together we will face whatever comes next. The court began to adjust to the announcement. Some nobles, reluctant at first, nodded in respect. Others whispered quietly, acknowledging that John's actions could not be ignored. Slowly, the tension in the room eased, replaced with curiosity and cautious acceptance. Over the next few days, John continued to spend time with Leora. He taught her more about humans, stories of Earth, simple games, and lessons about bravery and kindness. Leora listened, laughed, and asked questions with endless curiosity. Every day, their bond grew stronger, and the court began to accept the unusual relationship. John also observed the court carefully. He noticed that factions who had opposed him were now quieter, hesitant to act against someone who had saved the queen's child. Others began to watch him with interest, studying how a human could move through the complexities of their society. He realized that his presence was changing perceptions, not just of himself, but of humans in general. One evening, the queen invited John to dine privately with her. The room was quiet, filled only with soft, glowing light. Leora was asleep in her quarters, and John felt a sense of calm he had not felt in weeks. John Miller, the queen said, you have done what few humans could. You have earned the trust of my child and the respect of the court. That is no small achievement. John bowed. I am honored, Your Majesty. I only did what was right. Leora's trust meant everything to me. Irina studied him for a moment. It is more than that. You have shown the court that humans are not to be feared blindly. You have proven courage, intelligence, and compassion. That is rare among outsiders. John felt a surge of humility and pride. Thank you, Your Majesty. I hope to continue proving myself every day. The queen nodded. Very well, you will remain close to Leora as her guardian and teacher, but remember this is only the beginning. Trust can grow, but it can also be challenged. Be vigilant and above all, remain true to yourself. I understand, John said quietly. As the days turned into weeks, John became a part of the palace life. He walked the halls with Leora, taught her, protected her, and even assisted in council discussions when appropriate. The court slowly accepted him as the child's guardian, and whispers of fear and suspicion gave way to cautious respect. Leora's declaration of John as her father had created a new reality in the palace. Humans were no longer seen only as outsiders. They were capable of trust, loyalty, and bravery. John had changed the way the court saw his people, simply by being honest, kind, and courageous. One morning, Leora approached John in the garden, holding a small, floating orb that shimmered with many colors. "Father, will you teach me more today?" she asked. John smiled. "Of course, Leora, what shall we learn today?" She thought for a moment. "About courage, about humans, about trust." John nodded. "All right, then we begin." As they played and studied together, the court looked on from a distance, their expressions softened. The queen watched with a quiet pride. She had been wary of outsiders, protective of her child, and cautious of the future. But now she saw that trust could bridge worlds. A human had earned a place in her court, not by force, not by words alone, but through action and heart. That evening, John stood on a balcony overlooking the floating city. The lights shimmered like stars, and the wind carried a soft hum of energy through the platforms. Leora joined him, leaning lightly against his side. "You changed everything, Father," she said softly. John smiled. "We changed it together, Leora. You trusted me, and I honored that trust. That is what matters." She nodded, her golden eyes shining. "I am proud of us." John looked at the glowing city below and then at the child beside him. He realized that this bond, simple, honest, and strong, was more powerful than any weapon, any army, or any courtly rule. It was proof that trust and courage could create a future where humans and Zalarians could stand together. The queen had accepted him, the court had adjusted, and most importantly, Leora knew that she could rely on him. John felt a quiet peace settle over him. He had come to this strange world as a simple envoy. Now he was something more. He was Leora's father, her protector, her teacher, and a bridge between worlds. And in that moment, looking at the glowing lights and the child who had changed his life, he knew that they had created something new, something that could shape the future of the empire. The palace, once full of tension and suspicion, now held a sense of possibility. John had proven that humans could rise to challenges, face danger with courage, and earn trust where it had seemed impossible. And as he held Leora's small hand in his, he knew that their story was only beginning. Together, they would face the future, side by side. And the court, once silent and doubtful, would watch as a human, and a child of alien royalty, created a bond that no one could break.